I never thought a single night could unravel the life I'd spent 16 years building. I'm Madison, a 41-year-old graphic designer from the quiet suburbs of Columbus, Ohio, where every day blends into the next, until a chilling November night changed everything. Driving down a desolate highway, the frost gleaming like broken dreams under my headlights, I stumbled upon two strangers who stirred something dormant inside me, a longing I'd buried beneath routine and regret. Their laughter filled my car with a warmth I hadn't felt in years, but as the miles stretched on, so did a dangerous temptation. What happened next threatens to shatter the trust of the one person I swore to never betray. Will I lose everything for a moment I can't take back? There's a certain stillness in the way the world looks through a car window at night, a kind of quiet that presses against you, heavy and unyielding, as if the darkness itself is trying to whisper secrets you're not ready to hear. My name is Madison, and I'm 41, navigating life in a sleepy suburban pocket just outside Columbus, Ohio. My days are a blend of mundane rhythms, freelance graphic design projects that keep my hands busy but not my heart, and a marriage to Greg, my husband of 16 years, that feels more like a well-worn routine than a partnership. He's 45, a financial consultant who buries himself in work, coming home late with tired eyes and conversation that rarely strays beyond bills or what's for dinner. We've built a life together, a comfortable one, but the spark we once had, it's like a candle that's burned down to nothing but wax and memory. We tried for children, year after year, but the house stays silent, an empty space that echoes with what could have been. That void, it's carved out a hollow in me, one I fill with overthinking during the long hours I'm alone. I crave connection, something to jolt me out of this predictable cycle, but I've never known how to reach for it, or if I even deserve to. I've always thought of myself as steady, moral, the kind of woman who plays by the rules. But a few nights ago, something happened that shattered that image I had of myself, something that's left me questioning everything I thought I knew. It was late autumn, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones, and I was driving home around 11 p.m. on a lonely stretch of highway, the kind where the streetlights are sparse and the shadows seem to stretch on forever. The air was crisp, biting at the edges of my cracked window, carrying that sharp November chill that makes your breath catch. A thin layer of frost clung to the ground, glinting like shattered glass under the pale moonlight. I was lost in my thoughts, the hum of my old sedan's engine the only sound, when my headlights swept across something unexpected, two figures standing by the guardrail, hunched against the cold. Their breath puffed out in little clouds, visible even from a distance, and something about the way they stood there, exposed and shivering, tugged at me. As I got closer, I could make out their shapes more clearly. One was tall and lean, his dark, messy hair peeking out from under a beanie, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of a worn leather jacket. The other was shorter, stockier, with sandy blonde hair catching the faint glow of my lights, pacing back and forth like a caged animal, his nervous energy practically radiating off him. They looked so out of place, vulnerable in a way that made my chest tighten. I slowed down, my grip on the steering wheel tightening as my mind raced. It was late, I was alone, and every sensible part of me screamed to keep driving, to not get involved. What if they were trouble? What if this was some kind of setup? But then I saw the taller one glance my way, his eyes catching the light for just a moment. And there was something in that look, desperation, maybe, or just plain exhaustion, that made my foot ease off the gas. My conscience would and I couldn't ignore that look in his eyes, so I pulled over, my heart thumping louder than the idling engine. As I rolled down the window, the taller one stepped forward, introducing himself as Ethan, his voice smooth despite the chill. The other, Caleb, gave a quick nod, his grin a little crooked, but warm. Their car had broken down miles back, they said, and they'd been stranded for hours. I hesitated, but something in their genuine gratitude when I offered a ride made me push past my doubts. They climbed in, bringing with them the faint scent of cold leather and cigarette smoke, and just like that, my quiet night took a turn I never saw coming. The drive to their place was oddly comforting, the hum of the heater filling the silence at first, its warmth a soft contrast to the biting cold outside. The dashboard lights cast a dim, amber glow across the car, catching the edges of Ethan's face as he sat beside me in the passenger seat. He turned to me with a smile that felt too easy, too charming, and thanked me again for stopping, his voice low and sincere. In the back, Caleb started cracking jokes about their rotten luck, his laughter rough but infectious. I found myself chuckling along, the sound foreign to my own ears. I hadn't laughed like that in months, maybe longer, and it felt like a weight lifting, even if just for a moment. As we drove, they opened up a bit. Ethan shared that he's a bartender, saving every tip to one day open his own spot, his eyes lighting up with a quiet determination. Caleb, on the other hand, is a musician, busking downtown with a guitar and a dream, his stories full of reckless hope that felt so far from my own structured, predictable life. Their energy was magnetic, wild in a way I'd forgotten existed, and I caught myself drawn to it, fascinated by how they seemed to live without the invisible chains I'd wrapped around myself. I tried to shake the thought, scolding myself for even entertaining it. I'm married, I reminded myself. My life isn't theirs. But the pull was there, subtle and persistent, like a current. The early morning hours in Ethan and Caleb's apartment feel like a weight pressing down on my chest, the kind of silence that's louder than any words could ever be. It's just past 4 a.m., and the dim light from a single lamp casts long shadows across the cluttered living room, highlighting empty beer cans and a half-eaten pizza on the coffee table. The air is stale, thick with the lingering scent of smoke and something heavier. Regret, maybe. We're all sitting there, avoiding each other's eyes, as if looking at one another would force us to acknowledge what happened just hours ago. I'm curled up on the edge of their worn-out couch, my arms wrapped around myself, trying to hold in the storm of emotions threatening to spill out. Shame burns hot in my throat, and I can't stop my mind from racing, spiraling back to Greg, who's probably fast asleep in our bed right now, trusting me without a second thought. He has no idea where I am, no clue about the line I've crossed, and that thought alone makes my stomach churn. I need to get out of here, to escape the suffocating weight of this room. I mumble something about having to go, my voice barely above a whisper, and I stand up too quickly, nearly tripping over my own feet. Ethan looks up at me, his expression unreadable, and offers a quiet, almost apologetic, "Thanks for everything." There's a heaviness in his tone, like he knows this goodbye is more than just a farewell for the night. Caleb, on the other hand, doesn't even glance my way. He's staring at the floor, his jaw tight, hands fidgeting with the hem of his shirt. I don't blame him for not wanting to face me. I can barely face myself. I grab my coat and bag. The movement's mechanical, and head for the door without another word, the click of it shutting behind me, echoing in my ears like a final judgment. The drive home is a blur, the highway stretching out before me, eerily empty in these pre-dawn hours. My hands tremble on the steering wheel, the cold leather biting into my palms as I grip the next day, dawn's gray and heavy, mirroring the storm inside me. I'm barely holding it together as I shuffle through the kitchen, the familiar motions of making coffee feeling like a performance for an audience that isn't even here. The clink of the mug against the counter sounds too loud, each sound amplified by the silence in my head that's screaming with guilt. I'm a mess, eyes puffy from a night of no sleep, my hands shaky as I pour the dark liquid, spilling a little on the counter. I don't even bother to wipe it up. What's the point? Everything feels pointless right now, like I'm just going through the motions to pretend I'm still the same person I was before that night with Ethan and Caleb. Greg walks in, his tie half knotted, his brow furrowed as he glances at me over the rim of his coffee cup. He notices something's off right away. Maybe it's the way I can't meet his gaze, or how my shoulders are hunched like I'm carrying the weight of the world. "Hey, you okay?" he asks, his voice gentle, laced with a concern that cuts through me sharper than any blade. I freeze, my breath catching as I look up at him. His kind eyes are searching mine, hazel flecks catching the morning light, and there's a softness there, a quiet worry that makes my chest ache. His voice drops even lower, almost a whisper as he steps closer, repeating, "Madison, what's wrong?" I can smell the faint cedar of his cologne, feel the warmth of his presence, and for a split second, I'm on the verge of spilling everything. The truth hovers on the tip of my tongue, bitter and burning, about that night, about the choices I made in those late hours, the kind of choices that can't be undone, the kind that left me feeling like a stranger in my own skin. But I choke it back, the words sticking in my throat like shards of glass. Instead, I force a weak smile, my voice barely steady as I lie. "I'm just tired. Stayed up too late working." He nods, though I can tell I couldn't keep the truth buried any longer. After days of wrestling with myself, I sat down at our kitchen table, the same one where Greg and I had shared countless quiet meals, and I wrote it all out in a letter. Every word felt like a shard of glass, cutting deeper as I poured out my confession about that night with Ethan and Caleb, about the choices I made that went beyond any boundary I'd ever set for myself. I didn't soften the edges. I laid bare the betrayal, the pull I felt, and the way I let myself fall into a moment that I knew would break us. When I finished, my hands were trembling, the pen nearly slipping from my grip. I folded the letter, left it on the counter where I knew he'd see it, and waited, my heart a heavy drum in my chest. When Greg came home that evening, the house was suffocatingly quiet. I heard the jingle of his keys, the familiar creak of the door, and then his footsteps pausing as he spotted the envelope. I stayed in the living room, out of sight, but I could picture it all. Him picking it up, his brow furrowing in confusion, then sitting down at the table as he unfolded the paper. The silence stretched on, thick and oppressive, broken only by the faint rustle of the page. I didn't dare move, didn't dare breathe too loudly, as if any sound might shatter whatever fragile thing was left between us. When he finally appeared in the doorway, his face was a storm, hardened, unreadable, his jaw set tight. The air grew heavy, charged with a tension I could almost taste, bitter and cold. He didn't yell at first. He just stood there, the letter crumpled in his fist, his eyes boring into mine with a mix of hurt and raw anger. When he spoke, his voice was low, trembling with barely contained emotion. "How could you do this, Madison? After everything we've been through, how could you throw it all away for whatever that was?" Each word landed like a blow, and I felt myself shrinking under the weight of his pain. I didn't try to defend. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.